Hello, and welcome into episode 64 of the Stomp the Bus show. I am your host, Mark Harris, coming at you with Colton Dodgson, whose camera has betrayed him this Thanksgiving week. So that's one thing he won't be thankful for tomorrow. But just got a few things to talk about as we head into the Territorial Cup, starting with ASU's recent loss to Oregon. Saw very little of because I was in Austin for a friend's wedding, doing all sorts of other things, and I saw the final score, and that was pretty much all you needed to see. So, Colton, you were actually at the game.
Yes.
What is your kind of general takeaway from the game against Oregon?
It was exactly what you should have expected. Like there
Yeah.
was no scenario where this team was going to beat Oregon, or really even look competitive against Oregon. I mean, I was shocked. It's crazy how often, and this is just a state of where this team is at due to injuries and lackluster quarterback play and all these other things. I mean, Dillingham is doing what he's doing kind of out of necessity, and that's running the number of like gadget plays, Scatterbo at quarterback, that sort of thing,
Right.
to try to stay competitive. And when that has to be like that element of surprise and trickeration or whatever you want to call it has to be a staple of your offensive game plan because you just don't have the firepower. It's not going to bode well against a team as talented as Oregon, who is likely, depending on what happens in the Civil War, haven't gotten word from Connor Pelton about whether or not he'll be grounded for this one or not. We'll have to figure that out. I'll reach out and figure it out. But anyway, depending on what happens in the Civil War, yeah, that's my all-time favorite Pelton
Inside
story.
joke right
But
there.
yeah, depending on what happens in that game, Oregon could very well be headed to the playoff in the Oregon or Washington, depending on what happens in the Pac-12 championship.
Right.
Assuming that they both get there. So, I mean, all of that to say, it was the only game I've been at this season, and I picked a very weird game to go to. But I mean, I don't know. It was fun. We had the over, so 35 points in the first quarter was nice.
You mean the first half?
Uh, maybe it wasn't first quarter. Maybe it was like 21 or 28 in the first quarter, but
Right.
Oregon was scoring like crazy. Ton of Oregon fans there.
That
Was
makes
another
sense.
takeaway. It was like 80% Oregon fans at that game. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Justin Herbert's brother caught both 2 touchdowns in the game. Bo Nix left the game maybe in the third quarter just because it wasn't competitive. Which, there's the outliers like the Washington games, but the talent disparity between the top of the Pac-12 and where ASU is right now is just not competitive. So this is kind of like the Utah game a little bit for me. There's really nothing to break down here.
Right.
There's nothing to even go in depth with. It's watching Scatterbo is incredibly fun. If he somehow comes back next year, I hope we get to watch him again. But who knows?
I think he will most likely come back. So,
but I mean, like transfers or whatever,
yeah,
right?
I get it.
You
True,
never know
but
what's going to happen. But I mean, another year of watching Scatterbo would be fun. But yeah, that's kind of all I took from it was watching Scatterbo was fun, and Oregon is very good.
yeah.
And I hope we get the Oregon Washington rematch because Oregon is a missed field goal away from probably being in the playoff as it stands today.
Right.
In that Oregon Washington game. So yeah, long-winded way of saying they're really good, we're really not.
Absolutely. No, yeah. I mean, the only thing that because weren't there some like shorter passes that went a long ways in this game? Like screens
Yeah,
and
there
stuff.
was some like a tight end screen I remember went for a touchdown. We definitely had some fun before the game and during the game. So in a game like that is not very competitive, you resort to other activities to kind of enjoy yourself.
Absolutely.
So I wasn't watching very closely. But again, it's the same thing with ASU was in a position to score a touchdown early and make it 7-7, which who knows if that changes the complexion of the game.
It wouldn't
Doubtful,
have.
right? Yeah, doubtful.
It just would have made the score more respectable. Yeah.
Right. That over would have floated a little earlier. But yeah, man, I put this in the category of the Utah game. I don't know what time of possession was, but anytime you're scoring 3 points, your defense is probably on the field for 65-70% of the game, which if that's the case, I mean, it's very similar to everything I said about the Utah game. This is a good defense that was probably just a little downtrodden.
Yeah.
What's the point? Maybe human nature starting to kick in a little bit, and extremely gassed. Oregon is a fast team. Bo Nix is surgical. So I mean, when he's able to throw into those high percentage windows and this scheme is doing what it's doing to you, that's pretty demoralizing. So yeah, I don't know. Again, I put it in that the Utah tier of like just kind of a throwaway. Not an excuse by any means, right? But it's just a state of where this team is. It's just the reality of the situation. Like, you can't expect your defense to play well when your offense isn't doing anything. You have to play complementary football, and if you don't, you're going to get scores like you got on Saturday. So
totally. And Dillian basically said after the game, like, yeah, we're just not as good as this team, which is so it's refreshing to hear that from a coach, honestly. Like, and it's easy to say that in year one, but
I mean, it's just, again, it's the reality of the situation. And I'm sure a little bit of that, like, if just speaking from like my personal, maybe this is why I never made it to the level of college football, because I think this way. But if I'm going through my week of prep to play Oregon, I'm probably not like shock the world. I'm probably like, yeah, we're gonna get slapped around more than likely. But again, that mentality is why I didn't play D1, and that's the only reason.
Yes, it was only correct, of course.
That was it. That was it.
Couldn't have been anything else.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah. No, but like the reason I brought up the like, oh, they let some shorter passes go long is that's really the only thing that you could have been like, oh, ASU should have done this better. It like tackled better, closer to the line of scrimmage or whatever. But the reason you bring that up is because there isn't really anything like Oregon just way better than ASU. So
anytime that's a good point, because I'm almost certain I recall a tight end screen going for like 35 yards. And anytime a tight end is gashing you for 35 yards on a tight end screen, that's not great. So yeah, there was some of that, but again, they're just so much better than ASU, so that's to be expected.
Totally. And like, this is what I tweeted out from the Stomp the Bus account at Stomp the Bus Pod on Twitter. You can be the 26th Twitter follower. I just tweeted out, talent gap is too wide for ASU to compete in this game. Not worth getting worked up about. Makes the win over UCLA last weekend even more impressive. And, I stand by all that, because they had to resort to gimmicky stuff against UCLA. UCLA just isn't as complete of a team as Oregon. And so through the element of surprise and through a fantastic defensive game, they were able to win that game. And so, like, this is why we talked about, the Cal and Colorado games when ASU lost those games. It's like those were opportunities to win, and you didn't know when you were going to get them again. And as this season has shown out, we were kind of right to think that. We didn't know Wazoo was going to fall off as much. But, it's a huge talent gap. Dillingham knows what it looks like too, and that's good to see as an ASU fan. And then another thought I had, in between this game and us recording, is ASU is never going to play a team as good as Oregon in the Big 12. Just they're not. No other team in the Big 12 that ASU is joining recruits like Oregon does. Just has the overall like program strength. as Oregon does. People can say Utah, like, cool, Utah's had no Utah team of the last 2 years is as good as this Oregon team, or as good as the Mariota Oregon teams, or even the Chip Kelly teams, like
Right.
and so like that is a little bit refreshing, because I mean, honestly, the only time if you're ASU, you'll play a team like that in, being in the Big 12 is either in the non-conference, which I don't have the ASU's non-conference in front of me, but I know they put Mississippi State in the non-con the next 2 years. So that, that won't be the case with them, or in the playoff. And if you get to the playoff and get blown out, like, sign me up, like, I'll take that.
Yeah.
So it's ASU will probably never be this bad under Dillingham, and they will never play a team like Oregon in the regular season, or at least in the conference play of regular season. So that's
definitely. You're going through this is probably the best year of the Pac-12. Would you say that, like, I'm trying to think. I don't want to make like a hyperbole.
The 2014 season was a really good year for the Pac-12. That's when Oregon played in the national championship game.
Oh, right.
If you look through, look through the, like, all the ranked teams in the Pac-12, ASU was ranked at that season. U of A was ranked. UCLA was ranked. Utah was ranked. I think there might have been another team that was ranked too. So that was the last year where the Pac-12 was this good, but that was our freshman year of college. So it makes sense why you would pick that up.
Yeah, I was just trying to think of like when else it was this good. But either way, this is one of the best seasons the Pac-12 has had, maybe ever.
Right? And arguably the best too. Like, it could, yeah.
And this is, I mean, for quarterback play, definitely. Like, when's the last time you had, what is it, 3 or 4 of the top 7 guys in the country in the same conference? But either way,
well, they probably have 2 Heisman contender, 2 guys that will end up in New York from this conference, and that's not even including Caleb Williams.
Yeah, possible number 1 pick.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Oh, and the kid from U of A's played really well too.
Fafita, yeah.
Cam Ward, again, he had a good start to the year. Shedeur Sanders.
Right. Cam Rising hasn't played this year.
Right. So anyway, all of that to say, you're absolutely right. They will never have the gauntlet that they had this year in the Big 12, which bodes well for, where we could go from here in terms of wins and losses. And I also wonder, there hasn't been much made of the bowl ban, right? I remember Ralph saying that, like, all of these games were exhibition games, and he's absolutely right. I just wonder, like, how much does that affect the players, right? When you're going through this season, that's like, lose by 50 to Utah, lose by 50 to Oregon, and you're not really playing for anything. Once you get a couple wins, it's like we've kind of reached our ceiling. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wonder how much of that comes into play, and what impact being able to play for a bowl does next season when they're able to make a bowl game.
Totally. Well, especially in games where you're just totally outgunned, like Oregon, like the instant that Bourget left against Utah and Conover came in, that you were outgunned at that very second. Like, so
it was over.
Yeah.
So, I'm looking forward to this team with a Big 12 schedule. I mean, I'm trying to think of, like, I don't think maybe next year we're looking at they make a push for bowl eligibility.
I think next year the expectation is to get to at least 6-6 and get to a bowl. I agree. I don't think that is being unfair, especially after what you've seen this season. Like,
that's asking for 3 additional wins.
Yes,
with
exactly.
a much weaker schedule, I think that is not outside. I don't think that's an unrealistic expectation.
No, it's not at all.
So I'm looking forward to that. I want to see the impact playing for a bowl makes. Hopefully, we get a healthy Rashada back. That would be cool.
Well, and speaking of Rashada, It was reported this week, yesterday. This is devilsdigest.com. Quarterback Jaden Rashada is the first quarterback to run out in the team segment this morning. So,
Wow.
yeah. And if you do play him, it's not like it was hurt. It wouldn't affect his red shirt at all.
Right.
And you know what's crazy? To this day, Jaden Rashada is the team's touchdown pass leader
That's
with
insane.
like 3 touchdowns.
And he played in what, 2 games?
2 games. Or maybe it's 4 touchdowns, but I don't have it in front of me. I should probably pull that up.
And he's one of what, 5 guys to take a snap at quarterback this
Boys, 4 quarterbacks all 4 of our quarterbacks have taken a snap. And then Conyers and Scadaboo have taken snaps at quarterback too.
So 6 guys have taken snaps at quarterback this year.
Yeah,
that's just, to have a season like this and still win 3 games is like absurd.
It is. Yeah.
This is just insane. So yeah, I hope Rashada sticks around. I hope we don't get another transfer from him. I don't know if we will. It doesn't seem like that's really something he might be interested in doing, given how everything went down last offseason. Maybe that stability of like getting comfortable and figuring things out going into your sophomore season is more alluring than hitting the reset button. And hopefully, the pass catchers and the skill players are like, I want to see what this looks like with this guy under center. Hopefully he's instilled enough, the Dillingham Rashada duo tandem has instilled enough confidence in guys to stick around. That's always my biggest fear now in this landscape is like, what is the transfer portal going to look like for this team? Are we just is it going to be like, teams picking over our carcass and we're left with like whatever, So I don't know. I guess we'll see what the team looks like after the transfer portal. I'm sure some guys will leave, but I think that'll be telling of what Dillingham was able to establish if he can retain key guys despite having the season that he had.
Absolutely. And like it's always something to worry about. But when it comes to Rashada, I understand the fear because like it is a earned fear that he would leave. But like my whole thing is like why like he came to ASU knowing he wasn't going to like a program, knowing that he was going to a program that was like in a rough spot,
right,
and all that. So and also in terms of like the transfer portal, like look with, when Ray Anderson resigned last week, the Sun Angel Collective like was saying, oh yeah, we've got like it's been clear that like the people who said they were holding out until he left decided to really start pouring it in after. And the question is like, okay, like, is that enough? I don't know, but maybe it's enough to keep like some of the key guys at least.
Right. No, that's crazy.
I'm going to be honest. Like I totally I'm not here to defend Ray Anderson or any of that. Like everything that people want to say about him is true. Like the one thing that I didn't like is if you are, and it's a moot point now because it's over, but like holding back NIL donations, it ultimately just hurts the kids, Right. So I get it. It's your money. And if you don't trust the leadership, like I get both sides of it, but if you're a kid on the team, like if you're, like it's gonna hurt you. So
Yeah. And on the topic of Ray Anderson, I know I wasn't on the last episode where you discussed it.
right.
Now that whole saga's over, I do feel, I don't think he did a great job in the position. But I do think he was like a decent guy.
Yeah.
I remember in school, senior year, I was like looking into possibly switching to sports business, and trying to get a master's in sports business. That was something I was looking into. And I, on a whim, shot an email to Ray Anderson to see if he would like just give me any like guidance because I had no idea what I was doing. And he responded and offered to meet with me. I didn't even ask him for a meeting. I just asked if he had any like advice. Reaches out, offers to meet with me. And I went up to his office and him and I just talked for like I want to say 30 minutes, 45 minutes, just one-on-one, sitting there having a conversation. And like, in this industry, reaching out to people in positions like that
Yeah.
and even trying to get a response is sometimes pulling teeth, let alone a courteous gesture. So despite the job that he did and despite what happened with Herm Edwards and everything else, and despite how it all ended, I do think that he was a good guy. Maybe he didn't do a great job in this position, but either way, whatever he does, he's getting paid $2 million to teach
Yeah.
at, at ASU, so he kind of made out there. But it's rare you find decent people on either side in sports admin, sports coaching, sports journalism. There's a lot of dicks in sports journalism too.
A lot of
Um,
egos.
yeah, so like
Yeah.
for somebody to do what he did, it really stuck with me. And, I do wish the best for him as a person. And I think he's getting a lot of justified flack, but we do have to remember that these are like humans. You know what I'm
Of
saying? And
course.
obviously
Yeah.
you and I have never gone overboard. Our criticism has always been just. And I don't think our criticism is reaching the masses in any capacity, but I also don't think we've ever said anything unfair. But I do kind of feel bad when, donations skyrocket the second a guy is,
Yeah.
relieved. It's a bad situation all around. And you're absolutely right. At the end of the day, like it's their money. But it does only hurt the kids. And you kind of feel bad for Ray Anderson, the person, not just Ray Anderson, the athletic director.
Right. And I think he just made one huge gamble
Yeah.
that in the moment people were questioning, and it blew up in his face. Like there's no,
Yeah.
and
It looks like
especially
it
the
might.
fact that it was his former client too. Like that's
Right.
just,
Right. You're
yeah.
absolutely right. There was a bit of a conflict of interest there, definitely. And it's not like his former client had like this long resume, right?
No, yeah,
Herm,
exactly.
Herm was out of coaching for 20 years.
Well, and he hadn't coached in college since like it was like 1 year. It was like 1989 as a DB's coach for San Diego State. Like,
Yeah.
so,
So it was a wild hire.
and just the new leadership model thing too. Like, yeah.
Yeah, it was, I will say this at the beginning, it seemed like they were headed in the right direction. And I
Yep.
always go back to that 2020 season as like, what could that team have looked like if not for the pandemic, right? We do the same thing with the basketball team from that year.
That
That
is
team was
true.
gonna make the tournament. That team had just had what did they do? They were set up for a first round bye in the Pac-12 tournament. They were
Well,
like,
I guess at least with the basketball team, the difference is you at least saw the whole regular season for the most part.
right.
And so the 2020 football team is just completely hypothetical. Like there's no, so
Absolutely, but I will
yeah.
say that it was building. Like if we looked at Herm's first year versus where they were headed that year, you were getting Jaden Daniels in, I believe that was his third season, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you were getting Jaden
No,
Daniels.
no, his second season. Jaden was 19, 20, and 21
You're
at
right.
ASU.
You're right. Yeah, so you were getting him in his second season. I'm trying to think of who the skill players were on that team, but I'm pretty sure wasn't
Jaden
Ayuk.
Daniels' freshman year, they had Ayuk and Frank Darby and Eno Benjamin, I believe. Like that's a good
Right,
skill
right.
group. Yeah.
They had a team. They had a solid roster, and it seemed like, the coaching staff before all of the wild stuff went down. And if there's no pandemic, that stuff probably doesn't happen, right?
Right.
So
So
it
yeah,
is
so
it is
I think it's a
crazy.
very nuanced discussion because like
Yeah,
the first 2 years, I just throw the pandemic year out in terms of what happened on the football field. Like obviously
yeah,
beating U of A 70-7 was awesome. Like that was an awesome game. But
right.
I don't hold it against Herm Edwards that he went 2-2. Like who cares? And I defended him his first 2 years. Like I defended him
Same
like this
here.
is what ASU
Same
is.
here.
Like they're building, but like the pandemic did happen,
Right,
and so like
right.
it's
I just think it's important to contextualize like
right.
describing this as a colossal failure, you have to recognize that there were some variables outside of his control that did make this look way worse than it may have been had that not happened. So when you think about it that way, it's like maybe maybe the product that was being developed at that point was going to look way better than it ultimately looked. I guess we'll never know. Obviously, it's a complete hypothetical. It just seemed the natural progression, getting Jaden Daniels in his second year, having the roster that you had that year. They looked like that was going to be a good team, and then obviously they just never recovered from that. So that's
Well,
that's like the big question mark for me, is what does this look like had that not happened? And obviously it did. So that's the discussion we have to have. But I think it makes it seem like, and this isn't like trying to stand up for Ray Anderson or anything like that. The dude's making millions. He's had a long career. He gets to just enjoy life now. Good for him. Yeah, I'm sure this maybe it impacts him a little bit, but I don't think he needs a dude on a podcast with 20 listeners defending him. I'm just saying, like, I think it's important to contextualize the whole experience and recognize that his big colossal failure, because we do have to recognize it as a colossal failure, that big colossal failure maybe was derailed by something that was completely out of his control, right?
yeah.
That's all. That's the one thing. That's always the big question mark for me when we talk about like his run as athletic director. And then obviously sticking with Tracy Smith for as long as he did for baseball. I mean, obviously
Going on air and saying we're not interested in NIL,
yeah,
like,
that was bad.
I
That was
know,
bad.
and here's the thing, like, I'm sure that was like a top-down decision from Michael Crow,
Yeah,
because Michael Crow has blood on his hands, figuratively, for the whole everything that happened with the football program too. Okay, like, Michael Crow is his boss,
right.
so you just have to word it differently. You just have to just, even if it's like some word salad, it's better than saying, yeah, we're just not going to be a part of that.
Right,
Like,
especially when that's not an option.
exactly.
You cannot be competitive in this
Well, and they
landscape.
didn't realize that though, and so
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah. No, you're 100% right, and I think that was a huge gaffe. But I think the writing at that point, the writing was kind of already on the wall. Like we knew
Yeah.
where this was headed. It wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when. We were in a post Ray Anderson era. But I mean, made he did make the Hurley signing, right? That wasn't
Yeah.
pretty.
No,
Yeah, so
he gets credit for that, and he gets credit for everything with ASU men's hockey,
right. He
bringing back
brought
men's tennis.
100%. He brought a D1 hockey team to ASU, helped with that, right? We kind of were we had a front row seat to that whole thing with the Cronkite angle there.
Right. I mean, he wasn't the only one, he helped facilitate it get done, but
Absolutely.
yes.
It happened under his leadership.
Yep.
He didn't veto it immediately. He said, if we can make it happen, we'll make it happen. And now
Yep.
ASU has a D1 hockey team and a beautiful facility on campus and all of those things. So sure, football, colossal failure. Baseball, not great. But he did some things well too. So I think it's important to look at the entire picture. And hopefully whoever comes in next can supplement what has already been happening with the football team, because I do think they're headed in a positive direction. I mean, it's hard when you start this low to really go
Yeah.
much lower, right? But progress is progress at the end of the day, and I think they're moving in a positive direction, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, just to wrap up this little tangent on Ray Anderson, the one thing with, like, I've had this conversation with some friends, like, oh, it could have gone, like, right if the pandemic didn't happen.
Right.
My thing is, it did happen.
Yeah.
It literally affected everyone in the world. And secondly, like, it affected, it affected all of college football,
Hmm.
and so that, and also, like, the 2021 season, in terms of Herm Edwards, like, I know ASU went 8-4 in the regular season. That was one of the most disappointing seasons I've ever seen. Like,
you're absolutely right.
Yeah,
The season that Utah had that year is what I expected.
Yes,
ASU was going to have,
and it's
you're
clear like they were
100%
clearly
right.
good enough to at least go like 10-2. You know, so
Yeah,
yeah.
no, I
So
completely agree with that. I mean, the Herm Edwards thing hit a brick wall.
Yeah.
And just the wheels came off and there was no coming back. But there was a point, probably the peak of the experience, there was a point where it looked like, hey, this might not be a
Dude, when
huge
they beat FSU
failure.
in that Sun Bowl, like 3 games
Yeah,
that end the season, they had a good recruiting class. Like that like it is objectively true that at that point in time, the Herm Edwards era was on the upswing, you know?
yeah. Beat Michigan State in back-to-back years too, right?
Right.
That, like, there was some signature wins. Jaden Daniels is a Heisman front runner now. There was
Well,
talent. I'm not saying we
I don't see
disrespect
that's like, yeah,
ASU.
you get credit for bringing him in, but
No.
Jaden
That's
Daniel,
not what I
yeah.
meant. That's not what I
Oh, okay.
meant. Let me rephrase. All I'm saying is, like, there was talent on the roster,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Like, you
Yes.
had a guy like Jaden Daniels who is now a Heisman front runner.
Right.
None of that has to do with ASU. I'm not saying that we get some credit for what Jaden Daniels became. He's probably better because he left this place. But it is eye-opening when you look around and see all of the talent that was once on this roster. And it just makes it so much more obvious that this team vastly underachieved in the Herm Edwards era.
Yes.
But you're right. That 2021 season was like, you couldn't defend it. I think that was wasn't that the BYU or the Utah game where the wheels came off in that Utah
Well, the
game?
BYU game where they didn't like they clearly just hadn't practiced for crowd noise.
Right. And
And
there was like
like,
20, there were like 10 false start
yeah.
penalties. And yeah.
And for a guy
No,
who
that
used to
season
coach
was
at
brutal.
Arrowhead Stadium, like that's just inexcusable.
Right. No, it was, and you practice in a bubble. Like,
Right, right.
how hard is it to pump some crowd noise into that bubble and make it like,
Yeah.
I feel like it would be easier to simulate that sort of environment at ASU given what they have to practice in. And I'm sure there's a lot of indoor practice facilities, but
Yeah.
just seems like I don't understand how you didn't prepare for that.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, let's move off this and talk about the Territorial Cup.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't expect ASU to win this game. I know I'm wearing an ASU hat right now, but U of A is playing really well. They're motivated. If Arizona wins this game, now I guess it depends on what happens in the Civil War, but they have a chance. Like if Oregon State beats Oregon, then Arizona will be playing for a shot to go to the Pac-12 championship game, which is crazy to say.
Yeah.
ESPN bet. So it opened at Arizona minus 12.5. It has since dropped to Arizona minus 10.5, which I think is interesting.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that. It seems like a rat line. Like, it's way too obvious. You have to go U of A minus 10, 10.5. But these rivalry games are weird sometimes, man.
Yeah.
I think that's probably what we're seeing is a lot of like two teams that it's going to be super emotional. I mean, two teams that kind of went down to the wire last season have played
Yep.
historically close games. I think 10.5, once you factor everything in, U of A is coming here this year. Once you take all of that into account, it seems like it is where it needs to be. I
Yeah.
wouldn't be shocked if this was a little more low scoring. I think we've seen ASU's defense and Brian Ward get that get that unit to bounce back pretty quickly. I mean, U of A's been a great team this year. It's two teams heading in complete opposite directions, but if there's any game to get up for, if there's any game that Dillingham can rally the troops for, I think it's got to be this one.
Yep. I saw a report that he was like showing them like old, like just really getting his players educated on what the Territorial Cup is and like how long it's been around, and like U of A trying to, in like I think it was 1959, like trying to not have ASU be like an actual university. So like there's like real venom in this rivalry. And look, U of A is good. Like they're a good team. The only thing that I can like talk myself into is I'm just looking at some of the common results against or results against the same team. So they beat Utah 42-18. Like they kicked their ass last week. Utah was without some guys, but that's still a very impressive game. Beat UCLA 27-10. We beat UCLA 17-7. So like there is we both beat UCLA by double digits. They beat Colorado by 3 points on the road. We lost to Colorado. Jeez, we lost to Colorado at home by 3 points. So it would take a lot for ASU to win this game. Like, let's be very clear.
Yeah.
I think like there is a chance. On ESPN, the what's it called? Like the stupid win predictions.
The FPI matchup.
Yeah, I'm trying to click on it.
Let's see. I got it too. I'm gonna see if I can pull it up. 130 kick too. I
love that.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's given us a 15.7% chance to win according to ESPN analytics. That feels about right. It's definitely like within the realm of possibility, but there's a reason we're a 10-point underdog,
Yeah. I thought when I saw 10 points, I was like, that's a little generous. But again, we've seen crazy things happen in these rivalry games. We've seen U of A win without throwing a pass in the second half.
Oh God! Oh my gosh!
We've seen 70-7.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of crazy stuff. So I wouldn't count anything out. The odds movement is very interesting. That's 2 points is pretty significant there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I honestly, the spread, I wouldn't go anywhere near it. I would almost lean under in this game if you're a gambler and you're looking for an angle. I would almost lean under in this game, and that would be the play. I wouldn't be shocked either way if ASU somehow pulled this off. It's like that's what this rivalry is. I don't think they will, but I don't know. 10.5 points, a little rich for my blood in this one, but we'll see what happens, man. It's hopefully it's not a blowout. I guess that's all we can ask for.
Right. There's two kind of points that aren't necessarily even related about U of A that I want to bring up in this game. Every time ASU has been blown out 3 times this season. Mm-hmm. Blown out by Fresno State, blown out by Utah, and then just blown out by Oregon. They responded very well after their previous 2 blowouts, right? After Fresno State, they played a legitimately close game against USC, and they very much responded after that game. Right. After getting blown out by Utah, they went on the road and beat UCLA. Responded to that game.
7 points.
So let's see how this team. This is the last game of the year. This is the last college game for a good chunk of the players on this team. They're going to leave it all out there, And Dillingham, yeah. I bet Dillingham probably saved a few plays that he wasn't going to use against Oregon because Dillingham absolutely knew we were going to lose to Oregon. So I'm hoping for some of that. And the other thing is, you mentioned Scatabo throwing the ball. At least by now, he's had a few games. He's had like 3 straight games of in-game reps,
Right.
And so U of A will be expecting it, but it's still like, I trust him to throw the ball a little bit more after he's done it a few times, So
yeah, and dude, I will say this: being at that game and watching him throw some passes, I was kind of shocked at how far he's able to get the ball. He's like, I almost would want him. I think he would bring more to the offense as the full-time quarterback than somebody like Conover would.
Oh, absolutely.
It's crazy to say. Like, you can do more.
Absolutely.
You can run the gadget sets. You can do all of that stuff. And obviously with accuracy stuff, that's completely different. But I don't know. I think he gives you a different element if you're able to run him out there at quarterback, on a more consistent basis. Or maybe Rashada runs out of the tunnel and we get our starting quarterback, which would be awesome. But can't hold your breath. I love the point that you made, and this is kind of what I was thinking too. And I was talking about how Brian Ward has responded to the worst showings by his defense this season. And after, giving up 29 points to Fresno State, you held USC under 50. I mean, we later see that this was a terrible season for USC.
Yeah, but at that point in the year, they were still like motivated, and
they were a juggernaut still, and you held them under 50 points. Then you have the 55-3 to Utah. You come back, you hold UCLA to 7. Not a great offensive team, but still, a lot of good. That goal line stand from the 1 early in the game where they held UCLA out of the end zone for 4 plays. Like, there's a lot to like about what we might see from this defense and what precedent has told us about Brian Wart's ability to respond. I think the scary proposition here is what is ASU going to look like offensively, right? What are we going to be able to do? So again, I don't know. I think, you got to play. I don't know what's going to happen, man. I'm probably going to end up picking ASU just because it's our last game, and I'm not going to pick against them. And all
right, let's score predictions for this game. Let's do it.
Okay. I think it's going to be weird. I do think it stays under. I think a lot of wild stuff is going to happen. If the under is set at 50.5, I'm saying ASU wins 24-20. U of A is going to have U of A is going to have a shot to win at the end, and we're going to make some sort of defensive stand.
There we go.
That's what happens.
Well, Colton, I wish I could agree with you. I got U of A winning 27-21. So.
And you're probably going to be right.
Yeah.
Both stay under though, right?
Yeah, so I guess. Yeah,
we're aligned there. That's good. But yeah, man, it's just a crazy rivalry. I wouldn't be shocked.
That is true.
With either outcome. But I gotta go big or go home on our last prediction of the season.
Hey, I hope you're right, my friend. All right. Well, that's some good football talk right there. Let's touch in on some of the other sports real quick. So volleyball today, it says on the 22nd, they fell to Wazoo in 5 sets on the road at number 18 at number 11 Wazoo. ASU volleyball is still number 18 in the country and 25-6 overall. So they're having a fantastic season. They're at Arizona on Saturday as well. So that should be another interesting Territorial Cup matchup. I just want to keep highlighting volleyball. It's just such a great season they're having. And yeah, so just wanted to shout them out. I mean, they're going to be in the tournament. They're ranked. They're having a good year, and hopefully they can close it out with a win at U of A. ASU hockey has moved up to number 13 in the where is it? Okay, I'm looking for the graphic on their Twitter. Has moved up to number 13 in the USCHO rankings. They host number 9 Providence for a two-game set this weekend. That's going to be awesome. I mean, the fact that you have it's like a top 15 matchup against, like, Providence is a school that people know, at least from like following basketball and stuff. Like, so I just need to get to a hockey game this year because they're playing a fun style of hockey and scoring points, winning games. They swept Alaska Anchorage over the weekend. So it's just good to see. It's kind of good to see like things coming together for ASU hockey.
Yeah, absolutely. I covered that team in their first season as a D1 program. So to see them go from that to what they are now, it kind of seemed like, it happened a little later than maybe people thought it might, right? But it's finally happening, and they're finally putting a solid product out there. I'm really happy for Greg Powers. He's a great dude. So it's awesome what they're able to do, and shout out to the voice of ASU hockey, Tyler Paley as well.
Right, class of 2018, baby. All right, ASU men's basketball is back on the court tomorrow in Las Vegas against the BYU Cougars. What is the Mormons? the Storm and Mormons in the Vegas showdown. BYU will not be hungover for this game, so
No,
ASU
and
will have to be ready.
they
Oh,
will
that's a
not
dumb.
be doing much partying after either.
No. BYU's 4-0, and ASU is 2-1 thanks to barely beating UMass Lowell last week, which
that was crazy. I mean, UMass Lowell's a good team. Like
they beat Georgia Tech on the road, or I don't know if it was on the road, but they beat them.
Right, and you look at some of these teams, and it's easy to overlook like schools you don't really recognize, or schools that you're like, oh, who are they, right? But in college basketball, there's wins are tough. Wins are tough. So when you get them, and when you get them against quality opponents like UMass Lowell, you got to be happy with it. And when you come back the way that you did, right?
Yeah.
Like I think I feel like we see a win like that from a Bobby Hurley team every year. Like there's one win where they're like dead to rights and they somehow pull it out. And there's also games like the Mississippi State game. That's just the Bobby Hurley experience. But 2-1, BYU's 4-0. This would be a big win. I don't know what we'll see. It's game in Vegas on Thanksgiving, I guess. So 35% chance to win based on the analytics of ESPN. But man, we'll see what happens. I think this team's just figuring it out. That's kind of what we have to get used to in the Hurley era. Is you're not going to see a lot of early signs, or let me rephrase. There's gonna be something left to be desired when you're watching this team in November and December, right? But usually by the time you hit February or March, they're in the conversation to make the team, which is like that's all we can really ask for as ASU basketball fans. So
absolutely,
I mean, just keep winning games. I don't care how it happens. Just
totally. No, I agree with that. And BYU's definitely like they deserve to be favorite. They beat San Diego State earlier this year, and they've been blowing out the. It's a lot of FCS type teams. They beat Houston Christian by a lot, Morgan State by a lot, Southeast Louisiana by a lot. What I'm looking for ASU is you need to have a great defensive effort in this game, which they honestly, I think they did that in good part against Mississippi State. That one guy from Mississippi State just got super hot from three, and that kind of was too big of a hole to climb out of. But this is, if you're Hurley, you need to use this opportunity to get back on track after the Mississippi State game, if that makes sense. Because that was an ugly ass loss. It just was. And I haven't checked on Mississippi State after that, but this is an opportunity to kind of build some confidence. You've been playing Texas Southern and UMass Lowell. This will be on ESPN2. I was going to say it's going to be in front of a big audience, but it starts at, at 9 p.m. Mountain Time, and it's on ESPN2. So that's not the case, but it's an opportunity to knock off an undefeated team. And ASU is probably athletic enough to hang in this game. It's just, how are they going to do offensively? Right.
Right. Sean Phillips will be out for this game, though. That we'll see how that affects them. He's their leading rebounder. So what kind of impact might that have? We'll see. But yeah, definitely a solid litmus test against an undefeated team.
A team that will be your conference rival next year, too.
Right. This will be a conference game in 1 year. So.
And if they do lose, don't look just so offensively inept like you did against Mississippi State,
Right. That was
tough to watch, man.
That was brutal.
At least this time, no one will be yelling at them about their bets, or if they are, they're doing it from the stands.
Oh yeah. No, it's really funny that ASU won the race to 10 in that game.
I know.
That was all that was discussed on the broadcast.
They didn't win the race to anything else, but
yeah. I don't know. I think watching that stuff is kind of fun. I like when they talk about the game.
Oh yeah, I didn't mind it.
Yeah, no, it was cool. I didn't mind it either. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens tomorrow. It's a good BYU team, so we'll see.
Yeah, totally, totally. They should have they should be very prepared to play in this game. So that's good. Can't really. I think we covered everything for this one. So
Yeah, I
uh,
don't know if there's much else.
yeah. Well, have a happy Thanksgiving, Mister Cameraless Colton, and
Yeah, I'll work on my
almost
my technical issues. I'll try to iron those out.
maybe some turkey will help. As
Yeah.
always, please like and
Turkey sucks,
subscribe.
by the way. Sorry. Turkey sucks, by the way.
Not a turkey fan. Okay.
No, turkey. The food on Thanksgiving is not great. I asked my mom to bring mac and cheese this year because I was like, we don't usually have mac and cheese, but I need a change up, man. I can't go. Mashed potatoes are fine, but like
Yeah.
turkey stuffing mashed potato, I'm like, I need a staple in the mix that I can just like lean on. You know what I'm
I
saying?
feel like mac and cheese isn't mac and cheese kind of a Thanksgiving food now?
I think so. I've heard it
Yeah.
more recently than I ever had. I think this is like our first year having it. So
Okay.
yeah, maybe first or second. I don't know. But either way, man, it's good to have a tried and true elite food that I can lean on tomorrow.
Yeah, no, I'm just chilling by myself in the apartment for Thanksgiving, and I'm just gonna cook up some little steak bites that I got from Safeway. So I'm excited
There
about that.
you go, man.
Got
Steak
some
bite.
mac and cheese, mashed potatoes, and other substances that I'll be enjoying. So
There you go, Mark. I
stuff.
know you're a big other substances guy.
Who is it? Who is it
Yeah.
at this day
Yeah.
and age? All right. Well, with that, happy Thanksgiving to everyone watching. Please like and subscribe on YouTube, rate and review on your podcast app of choice. And as always, go Devils.